anywhere else.
Mr. President, I want to ask you about an area of which you may have an interesting perspective on. You were with the Wise administration when the Limited Video Lottery Act was passed. Now there's some discontent with the number of mini casinos that have popped up across the state. Of course, the Limited Video Lottery Act funds the Promise Scholarship Program. So that's one question. Are you worried with this discontent about Promise Scholarship funding? And two, is the limited video gambling working the way you had expected it to when you were with the administration? Two questions, two parts. Let's take the Promise Scholarship first.
Well, you know, Beth, from my perspective and from WVU's perspective, more importantly, the Promise Scholarship has had a profound impact upon enrollment. The bulk of Promise Scholars attend WVU. It has had an impact on keeping our best students in the state for college. Recall that when Governor Wise initiated the Limited Video Lottery Act, it was to reduce, restrict, and regulate the number of lottery machines or video lottery machines that were out there. We had estimates up to 15, 20, 25, 30,000 machines that were in the state, certainly not all being used for amusement only. That was the crux of why he did what he did. The very, very positive outcropping of that was the funding for the Promise Scholarship. We're always concerned if there's ever an attempt to take away or curtail the Promise funding. I think it makes a huge difference for our students. I make a good case for it, but the people who make the best case for what the Promise does and the impact it has had are the students. You know, when you talk to them, you see it in their faces, you hear it in what they tell you. The parents say they wouldn't have been able to even go to college without the Promise. So it does have a profound impact upon students, and we would be concerned with any attempt to curtail that funding. In relation to whether the act is working the way it was intended to work when it was passed, I think in terms of regulating those gray machines, as they were called, those machines that were out in open display in gas stations and other places, I think it has had an impact. I think like any piece of legislation, and this was a major piece of legislation, you always have unintended consequences. One of those is how they advertise, what you see on our landscape. That was something that I don't think anyone truly anticipated. And so for the most part, it is working the way it was intended because it was to reduce, restrict, and regulate. But there are always offshoots, and that's why laws are sometimes tweaked or revised or amended throughout the legislative process.
All right, 5 years from now, what do you hope to have accomplished?
Well, I'd love in 5 years to be able to say a number of things. Number one, that we have gotten faculty and staff salaries to a very competitive level in relation to those schools that we compare ourselves to. Two, we'd like to really move ourselves up in a variety of different rankings academically. We'd like to, and we will have in the next couple of years a very major private fundraising effort. I would also like to say that our enrollment and our retention numbers are better in 5 years than they are today. We want to retain, not only get the students in the door, but get them out the door on the other end with a great education, which we do now, but we want to make sure more of them are retained and graduate and get them into good jobs. And wouldn't hurt to have 1 or 2 national championships under the belt in 5 years.
WVU President Mike Garrison, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Beth.
Mike Garrison will be formally inaugurated next Friday at 1 p.m. at WVU's Woodburn Circle. The inauguration is open to the public.